Video game characters serve plenty of roles in games. Some battle against the player, some help them, and others mull around in the background to make the world feel more alive. But just because NPCs aren't real doesn't mean they don't have feelings. And sometimes those feelings turn into pure apathy against you. Yes, you, the player. The following video game characters fit that bill, as they looked directly at those holding the controller and straight up insulted them. It somehow hurts a lot more to be mocked by these characters since you're supposed to be in charge of them in the world, but they did not give a damn. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 brutal ways video game characters directly mocked players. Number 10. Heather Mason's Toilet Troubles, Silent Hill 3. There's an unwritten rule in gaming that if a title offers you the option to do something, you do it, even if it's grim. Silent Hill 2 forced players into this, as James Sunderland had to go diving into a gross toilet to get what he needed. Something you should really generally avoid in real life. However, Silent Hill 3's Heather Mason was less willing to commit to such a gross-out act. If you played Silent Hill 3 with a memory card featuring save data from Silent Hill 2 on it, then you'd be treated to a hilarious cutscene referencing the act in 2. In it, Heather comes close to delving into a toilet, just like James did. But before she commits, she jumps up in disgust and rejects the idea. Afterwards, she looks directly into the camera and says, "Who would even think of doing something so disgusting?" At that point, you probably raised your hand slowly and thought, "Heather, you're so right. Why on earth did I do that in the last game?" Well, you can't argue with results, I guess. Number 9. Sonic gets impatient. Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic's whole MO is going fast. The little blue guy has just gotta go fast, and if he's not, then something is truly wrong. But this isn't a condition that Sonic keeps to himself, as he's happy to let you know when you're slowing him down. There are times in gaming where you'll need to set the controller down for a second and leave the main character idle. Most player characters will patiently wait in these moments for you to come back and tell them what to do. Sonic, however, has no such patience, as taking too long to move him will result in the iconic character looking directly at the camera and aggressively tapping his toe. He does this in almost every 2D Sonic game. In some, he'll even wind up lying down on the floor if you leave him long enough. This act of defiance was unprecedented back in the 90s. It not only fed into the idea that Sega did games differently, but quickly established the personality of Sonic the Hedgehog as an utter speed freak who would happily mock the player. Number 8. Rubber Soul calls you a bonehead. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Heritage for the Future. The JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series, whether manga, anime, or video game, is obsessed with shattering the fourth wall. As such, the 1999 arcade fighter, Heritage for the Future, happily tosses its very stylish cap into the ring, looking directly at the player and saying hello before insulting them. Each character's ending gives a special conclusion to the story in typical fighting game fashion, but the character of Rubber Soul uses his ending to spit in your face. The Yellow Temperance stamp wielder revels in the money he's won during his fighting competition, and then says, "I'm the luckiest guy in the world. Wouldn't you agree, Bonehead?" Did that video game character just call us a bonehead? How rude. On top of that, a couple of other endings do similar things. For example, Devo looks directly at you and threatens to curse you. Mariah calls you cute and ponders becoming your lover. Ooh. And Black Polnareff jumps right into the camera and hacks you to pieces. Ouch. Number 7. Edge points you out. SmackDown vs. Raw 2011. The relationship between professional wrestling and the fourth wall is as tepid as pineapples and pizza, meaning they're a match made in heaven and I won't hear anything else about it. The comparison being they're undeniably linked, but many don't want to acknowledge it. Yet one character who didn't give a damn was Edge in SmackDown vs. Raw 2011. During Christian's Road to WrestleMania mode, he, of course, had plenty of interactions with the legendary Adam Copeland, but the rated R superstar had his sights set on another person. You. Early on in the story, Edge talks about pulling one over on the player, which leaves Christian baffled. Edge then follows this up by pointing directly at the camera and saying, "You see that weirdo staring at us through the TV?" He even gives you a little wave. That's not the only time Edge points out that he's aware he's in a video game, though. Still, this particular jab is so savage that it hits harder than his legendary spear to Jeff Hardy off the ladder at WrestleMania 10-7. Number 6. Mordecai loves standing still. Borderlands. That's right, Sonic the Hedgehog isn't the only video game character who hates to be kept waiting. However, unlike the fuzzy blue animal, this Vault Hunter breaks out some absolutely savage words at your expense when you do it to him. As a bombastic and bonkers first-person shooter, Borderlands sure loves chucking in some great jokes and dialogue. One such treasure trove of writing comes when you leave the Hunter class player character Mordecai idle. Doing so will result in him breaking out one of the following responses. "Sure is great standing here. I love it." Or, "Now that you mention it, I do love standing here doing nothing." Or he might also roll out, "How long are you gonna admire that dirt?" Yes, it's fair to say that this bird-loving badass has no qualms with sharing his opinions. His replacement in the sequel, Zero, also does more of the same, lamenting his idle status and making sure you know about it. Number 5. The Sans boss fight, Undertale. Undertale has more fourth wall breaks than Ubisoft has greedy business decisions. The whole game is essentially an inside joke for longtime gamers. Still, the king of shattering the fourth wall has to be Sans, who does it so often, he turns those bricks into dust. Nowhere is this more obvious than in his grueling boss fight. Going toe-to-toe with the joking skeleton requires some morbid decision-making, as you'll need to kill every monster in each area, so pull off a genocide run if you want to unlock the fight. Once you do, he'll break the game down, contradicting Undertale's rules to give you the fight of your life. On top of using the game's mechanics against you, he also roasts the hell out of you. The more you lose to him, the harsher his comments become. For example, he acknowledges every time you die, joking about which attempt you're now on, saying, "That's the expression of someone who's died X times in a row." This little bony man does not pull any punches, but considering you didn't pull any to get to him, that might be fair enough. Number 4. Eve stares back at you, Stella Blade. There's no shadow of a doubt that Stella Blade has been a roaring success for Sony, and a big part of the game's meteoric rise is the internet's love of the protagonist Eve. However, Eve seems wised up to why so many people like her so much, and she throws it right back in your face. The game undoubtedly plays up the character's overly sexualized presentation, and as such, Eve is aware that people are going to stare at her. Thus, she has a trick up her sleeve that she pulls out if you turn the camera on her face and stare at her for a good while. Do that and Eve will pull the Uno reverse card on you, staring into the camera right back at you as if to say, "What the hell are you looking at?" As amusing as this is, there's no denying it's kind of creepy. It's like players are getting caught in the act and judged by Eve, who happily gives you a taste of your own medicine. Maybe this is a lesson in respecting the boundaries of video game characters, but she's so pretty. Number 3. GLaDOS mocks you the whole time, Portal. So to be fair here, the whole thing about GLaDOS is that rather than breaking the fourth wall to mock the player, she pours all her efforts into roasting the player character's shell within an inch of her life. However, the sheer mind-numbing brutality of her mockery is so intense, it really does transcend the game and hit you right in the heart. As such, she's a shoo-in for our list. GLaDOS, which stands for Genetic Lifeform and Disk Operating System, is the villain of the Portal series and an AI that oversees the Aperture Science test facility. Despite not having one, her sharp tongue could cut a diamond in half. Some of GLaDOS's most intense jabs come at the expense of your puzzle skills, physical appearance, personality, and pretty much everything under the sun. Plus, she even tricks you into thinking you'll get cake, but there is no cake, and that's kind of the worst one of all of them now that I said it. This villain relentlessly mocks you the entire game, and while it hurts like hell, it's so damn funny and creative you can't help but appreciate it. Number 2. The Cloakers, Payday 2. The words one and hit mean precious little to a lot of people, but to gamers, they're an omen of misfortune, as enemies that can one-hit you are to be feared more than the mightiest of foes. Payday's version of this was the Cloaker, a special enemy who could crush your bank-robbing dreams without breaking a sweat. They dominated the first game so much that their absence from the second felt like a sweet release. But after complaints from fans, they were added into Payday 2, and not only did they kick your butt, they bruised your ego with direct insults as well. There were a bunch of different ways that these guys hurt your feelings after incapacitating you with one kick, so here are some of the best. We call this a difficulty tweak. Next time, check your corners. I've got your DLC right here. Didn't forget about me, did you? You wanted me back, so I'm back. And now go to the forums and cry like the little bitch you are. Number 1. Lara Croft knew what you were looking for. Tomb Raider 2. Lara Croft, taking down perverts since 1997. One of gaming's most infamous dark spots was the obsession with getting Lara Croft's kid off. The The rumors of the infamous nude raider cheat, an urban legend that suggests there was a code to unlock a naked version of the eponymous hero, were everywhere during the initial game's heyday. It was, naturally, untrue, but that didn't stop people from searching. With all this unwanted attention, Lara was geared up to get hers. Thankfully, she did just that in the game's sequel, teasing those same players and throwing it back in their faces. Not throwing it back like we say it in 2024, just the regular kind. In the final cutscene of Tomb Raider 2, Lara, clad in a bathrobe, got herself ready for a well-earned shower. However, just before she removed her clothes and gave those thirsting players the triangles that they'd hoped for, she turned to the camera and said, "Don't you think you've seen enough?" Then blasted you with a shotgun. Yep, that's one way to keep your game PG and score some revenge points.